All right.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to get our meeting started. Today is Tuesday, July 11, 2023 at 5:42, our first meeting of the new school year. So super excited to have this first meeting. Ms. Pena, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Miss Luna Rose,
Here.
Mr. Romero,
Here.
Miss Shaw,
Here.
Miss Ekstrom,
Here.
Dr. Ravi.
Here. All right, and we also have interpretation services. Tenemos servicios de interpretación disponibles. Por favor, indique con la mesa aquí si se necesita servicios de interpretación. Usually I lead with starting off the meetings with some fun facts about today. I'm doing a little differently this time. I'm going to actually lead us in a quick 1-minute breathing exercise to kind of center us and get us all on the same page. So this is for our governing board members, and anyone in the audience, anyone listening tonight can join us as well. I like the 4-4-8 method, which is 4 seconds of a deep breath in, and you want to fill it up as much as you can until your lungs are bursting. You hold that for 4 seconds, and then 8 seconds, you're going to breathe it out. So 4 seconds of inspiration, 4 seconds of holding it, and 8 seconds of breathing out. So we'll do a couple of repetitions of that. So we'll do first a practice here. I'm going to all get into a comfortable position. And then breathe in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Then out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you want to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. So we'll do it again, a couple of repetitions. We breathe in and hold. And then breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Do 2 more times. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. A lot of different techniques out there. This is one of my favorites. So thanks for doing that along with me. And we're going to go on to our next item on our agenda. It's 2.2, our land acknowledgement statement. And Ms. Ekstrom is going to lead us in that statement this evening.
On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Jennifer Ekstrom, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pascua Yaqui tribe.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Ekstrom. Okay. And then for our Pledge of Allegiance, item 2.3, we have a student on Zoom. This is Oliver Chapman. Hi, Oliver. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Oliver is a 3rd grader going into 4th grade at Bonillas Traditional Elementary School. Oliver Chapman, he likes to go into Bonillas because he feels welcomed by his teachers and friends. Oliver is an example of true kindness and respect. He always greets everyone with a welcoming smile and friendly hello. He is known for being a role model student. He encompasses all the character pillars of Bonillas. He is an honor roll and GATE student who loves learning more about math, science, PE, and his favorite subject, recess. Last year, as a 3rd grader, Oliver was a member of the Bonillas cross-country, basketball, and track and field teams. His hobbies include video games, board games, swimming, and being with friends and family. Thank you, Oliver, for joining us here this evening.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I ask everyone to rise for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, bye.
Oliver, go
I
ahead.
pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Oliver. Hope you're having a great summer.
I am. I am.
Right. In the pool a lot? So you'll enjoy
Yeah.
swimming? Yes, perfect time for that. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your summer and look forward to your fourth grade year at Bonias.
I will. Thank you for having me here today.
All right, next on our agenda is agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo, do we have any adjustments for this evening?
President Shaw, there are no recommended agenda adjustments for this evening.
All right, and then we stick with you, Dr. Trujillo, for our superintendent's report.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board, TUSD viewing public, whether here in person or virtually, welcome. We hope everybody's having a wonderful summer, and welcome to the first governing board meeting of the 23-24 school year. And it is appropriate to begin our very first meeting of the new school year to congratulate some of our wonderful schools for the yearly award of the 21st Century Community Learning Grant through the Nita M. Lowry 21st Century Program. Our schools of Cavett, Monzo, Wheeler, and Wright have been awarded a total of $1.9 million to offer a variety of after-school programming for their students, largely in the areas of additional assistance with reading, writing, and math, and of course, science-based education, all taking place after school. And thank you to the generosity of the Nita M. Lowry 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant. I want to thank all of the wonderful administrators at Cavett, Monzo, Wheeler, and Wright, and our hardworking teams at federal grants and programs for working with the Arizona Department of Education, making this award possible. Congratulations to those school communities. Look forward to seeing all that great after-school programming. And I want to congratulate the almost 150, to be precise, 146 summer graduates that we recently celebrated on the evening of June 28th over at the Tucson Convention Center. It was a beautiful ceremony. I want to thank Governing Board member Natalie Luna Rose for providing the evening's special remarks, if you will, and sending our graduates off into their graduation futures. And I want to thank all of the wonderful campus administrators that made that event a success, and thank all of the wonderful families that came out. You see some wonderful pictures for just a beautiful moment of celebration out there at the Tucson Convention Center. And we wish all of our graduates, of course, all the very, very best as they take their next steps in their post-secondary journey, whether that be joining the workforce or continuing their education, or, of course, serving in our nation's military branches. We wish them all the best. And want to take an opportunity to promote Impact Tucson Save the Date, Saturday, July 29th. This is our annual Back to School Bash, a celebration of community resources and a commitment to kids and community out at Palo Verde High School. That is going to be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday, July 29th, so in a few weeks' time. It's a wonderful event. Lots of great activities for students. There's backpack giveaways, back-to-school supply giveaways. There's some wonderful guest speakers. We've got some great keynote speakers lined up. There's working sessions for parents on all kinds of topics related to student achievement and parent participation and parent empowerment. Looking forward to a wonderful day out there at Palo Verde Magnet High School. So mark your calendars for Saturday, July 29th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Always have refreshments there, greeting our families, coffee in the morning, pastries, ready for all who will join us on that Saturday. And a couple of items of note to celebrate here that you'll see here on this agenda. I want to take an opportunity to thank Gila River Native American community for tonight's award up for acceptance by the governing board. $145,000 gift to Pueblo High School. You'll be able to note that on item 511 of consent. and Pueblo High School has big plans for its potential award for this opportunity to provide some much needed upgrades in the library that will include laminated flooring, protective seal window covering for the libraries, new tables and chairs for their media center, and they're really, really looking forward to also putting in some new lounge seating arrangements for the students to give it more of a university lounge feel there at the Pueblo High School library. And lastly, I want to take an opportunity to thank the Pima County Board of Supervisors for approving tonight's award for consideration by the governing board, $3.5 million to continue funding our Pima early education programs, which have seen to the addition of 8 additional preschool programs added to the TUSD portfolio of preschool programs, making preschool more affordable, more accessible to families who lack resources. And at $3.5 million, the award includes enough funding to actually expand by 2 more to a total of 10. So a couple of celebratory items that our board will have the opportunity to vote on this evening. President Shaw, members of the governing board, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And I saw that Palo Verde Impact through the dunk tank. Did I hear correctly that our very own Val Romero is going to be in the dunk tank? Is that correct?
Yes, it has been confirmed that governing board member Romero will be he will be in the dunk tank.
I'm sure that wasn't your suggestion, Dr. Trujillo.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Romero, for volunteering to be in the dunk tank at the Impact event. Everyone attend. I just put him on the spot here. So, all right, we're going to go on to item 4, call to the audience. And I'll turn it over to our board clerk while he's still dry to lead us in this.
And I'll only be in the dunk tank from 11:30 to 1, so you guys can convince in the later part of the afternoon. Public participation in board meetings. Members of the public may speak during the call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to our board office staff, and they will ensure that each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers should also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be made aware that children may be present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask any board member wishes to respond to criticism, wish to ask staff for a review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. First up, we have Dale Lopez, followed by Scott Thompson.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dale Lopez. I've been part of TUSD since I became a student at Roscrooge in 1968. I served as a teacher, a learning support coordinator, and a dean of students. I retired, but I continue to work as a substitute teacher and a basketball coach. I also officiate and umpire middle school and high school basketball and high school softball games. Also, for over 40 years now, in cooperation with Sheila Bays, Herman House, and now Desire Wheeler, and the TUSD Interscholastics Department, I have directed district-wide annual tournaments or meets for elementary and middle school, cross-country, basketball, and softball teams. So I haven't visited every one of our campuses, but in my travels, I've visited most and have dealt with the wonderful personnel at even more. That's why I want to take this opportunity to thank you for unanimously giving us the opportunity to improve our schools, all of our schools. Those of us who live TUSD every day know the importance of the items and improvements that are proposed in the bond issue. Every campus will be improved, which means that Tucson will be improved. Better schools make better communities. We can't just sit back and watch other school districts around us improve while we do nothing. Common sense tells us that when we put up a building, we need to improve and maintain it. Maintain and improve it. And here's a chance for us to maintain and improve every campus on our district. But we can't just wait until we receive our ballot in November and mail it back. Yes, that's important, but we must do more than that. Although teachers, parents, administrators, support staff, and students know that it's obvious that a yes vote is needed, we need to convince those who don't live TUSD every day to send back their ballot and vote yes. Our golf and bowling buddies, our church groups, our relatives, our friends, our neighbors. And no one knows better how badly these improvements are needed than recent graduates. If your son or daughter or nephew or niece or grandson or granddaughter graduated in May or in the past few years, make sure he or she is registered to vote. It's easy to get registered. They can do it online. Don't assume. Please ask. His or her vote means just as much as the person who's voted in the past 20 elections or that person who just sits back and takes pot shots at TUSD. This is a golden opportunity we have. Let's take advantage and improve Tucson. Vote yes.
Scott Thompson, followed by Helen Emmerich.
Thank you. I'm a teacher at Gridley Middle School. I've been in TUSD in one form or another since October of '93. So I'm coming up on my 30th. I can't wait. I'm not going to retire though. I still look forward to going to work every day. Best job in the world, being a teacher. I just love it. I come to you tonight not to try to stir up a hornet's nest. I come rather, we should be collaborating, or we could be collaborating on this. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. So I spoke about this about a month and a half after Uvalde, the tragedy at Uvalde, about physical security on TUSD, well, all campuses, but mainly TUSD because that's where I teach. We can talk about gun laws. That's a valid point, but I don't see a lot being addressed in the way of physical security. I know when I started teaching, it was at Hohokam Middle School. They had bars over the windows. They had walls around the campus, and it was a very safe environment. Okay. Since then, every school I've been at, I'm not criticizing, but physical security could be addressed. It could be added. It could be made more secure. I know when I do a lockdown drill at any school I've worked at since we've had lockdown drills, I look at these big windows and I'm like, it doesn't seem to be a natural deterrent as far as I'm concerned. I have not been at a school that's had a school resource officer from TPD or the Sheriff's Department for about 12 years now. We do have TUSD school safety officers. They are armed that I've seen on campus, but they're not there every day. They usually have 2 or 3 schools that they have to have responsibility over. That's all I have to say. I want to thank you for letting me address the board, and have a good evening.
Helen Emmerich, followed by Dolores de Vera.
Hi, my name's Helen Emmerich, and I'm a second grade gay teacher at Kelland Elementary. And I want to thank you for starting the bond to get more security across the entire district. However, at Kelland, we are under siege. We have break-ins almost daily at this point, and we can't get any information, or very little information is given to us about how much has been done to the school, how much damage, and how frequently these are. I have some information about 45 windows being broken, multiple graffiti cleanups. 4 times our fire extinguishers have been discharged. Our AC units have been vandalized 6 times. And last year, our school was set on fire. This is creating a learning environment for the students that is untenable. The teachers are in panic. Lives have been lost with our animals that we keep for the school and for the children's learning. We can't continue this way. We need relief as quickly as possible. We can't wait for the bond in November, which may or may not pass. We need something done as quickly as possible, and we need transparency where we know what the facts are and what we're facing each day when we go into work. Thank you.
Dolores Tavera, followed by Robert Roos.
Hello, I'm Dolores Tavera, and I'm talking about substitute teachers. I am a substitute teacher. So tonight you're going to pass a budget, and I have to say that as someone who has for 20 years covered school budgets, first as a news reporter back in the Show Me State, and then just watched the process here in Tucson as a resident who wants strong public schools, it is much better to have a budget that allows upgrades. But as a sub, I also have to say that I'm unhappy with some things. During the last school year, you gave almost everyone, including the highest earners in this district, retroactive mid-year pay raises. But we subs were left out. This budget has some nice raises in it for a lot of staff. But we subs, the lowest paid teachers in the district, even if we have years of experience, we're left out. You did recently agree to allow subs who work a lot the option to invest more in their retirement, and I want to publicly thank you for that. But keep in mind, that doesn't result in any more money in our pockets now. So we do have some subs who are trying to figure out if they can afford lower take-home pay for a better retirement. I'm going to do it, but I really feel for my colleagues who tell me they want to, but they just cannot afford it. Even that last raise you approved for us back in August 2022, Dr. Trujillo, he announced on the Bill Buckmaster show that subs would get a $25 a day raise at 25 hard-to-fill schools. I sent you a link of that interview. I hope you had a chance to listen to it. But then the raise was only implemented at 6 schools. And for most of us, it did not turn out to be a $25 per day raise. We found out we were only getting 10. I don't understand how this happens. Dr. Trujillo has graciously explained it to me that there was a mistake when he was being interviewed. I want you to know, Dr. Trujillo, that I really do appreciate that we have made many significant gains since you became superintendent, but I don't understand why everyone else gets a raise and we get left out. What I'm asking you, board members and Dr. Trujillo, is please don't forget about us. Before the school year starts, there should be some kind of plan so we can increase our earnings, either maybe improved opportunities to work at hard-to-fill schools, or I think we all want to eliminate that 20-day lower rate, which for us feels like it's some sort of training wage. Even though we've worked year after year, we have to start at a lower rate for 20 days. Give that to the people who are brand new, but we don't need that. Anyway, thank you for listening to me.
Robert Roos, followed by Pilar Ruiz.
This is my first TUSD meeting I have attended, and it took the shock of seeing your request for a $480 million bond enablement to drive me into this room. I don't understand how the enrollment in the school district keeps dropping every year, but you keep demanding more money. You need to contract your bureaucracy and contract the whole system to reflect the actual enrollment, not the enrollment you had 15 or 20 years ago. I can't afford to pony up another $400 or $500 a year for what is not a first-class school system. I don't think anybody even has a vision of what a first-class school system looks like. I do. I'm a product of the highest-rated public school system in the history of the world. So I know what a first-class school system looks like, and this is not it. I seriously doubt whether the voters in Tucson are going to trust you with $500 million, with the reputation which every single taxing body in this county has for wasting money, from the city of Tucson and their $20 million for plans for a phantom hotel that was never built. There was $8 million for a rainbow bridge. We got $8 million for a tortoiseshell arena, and I'm missing one. It's a $6 million one. Well, let's just move on. We've got a Pima County Board of Supervisors which just thinks we're all made of money. And I resent the fact that I'm supposed to pony up more money on my library assessment to pay for other people's early childhood education. I'm 72 years old. I have never made a human being. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm not leaving any children behind to overtax this planet and devour its resources. But at 72, you're asking me to pony up $400 or $500 a year for the next 20 years until I'm 92 years old or I'm dead, whichever comes first. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to make it to 92. So, once again, I trust the citizens of Tucson to know better than to shovel $500 million, which is going to cost us close to $1 billion, including the interest, to a school district with a reputation for financial irresponsibility. I trust that the voters are going to vote this down. I'm almost sure they will, but I'm taking no chances. I will be campaigning against it. Thank you.
Pilar Ruiz, followed by Tara Radliff.
Hi, my name is Pilar Ruiz, and I want to remind you and thank you for looking at the speakers when they talk, for those of you who do. So what I want to say, first of all, is I do love TUSD. I'm a product of TUSD. My daughter went to TUSD, and you know, I may have more family members that come to TUSD. So I'm a taxpayer. I do have a vested interest in TUSD. And I think now more than ever, it's really important that we practice transparency and accountability, even in the smallest thing, right? I've heard over the last several months, speakers come to this podium and ask questions about expenditures, and they just never get answered. They just go around in a circle, and it's really disrespectful. It's inappropriate, and it is not the kind of thing that's going to increase trust for people to vote yes on a bond. Yes, the schools need a lot of money, right? So we got to work, if you really want that bond passed, you need to work on answering the questions about where the money is being spent, truthfully. And so I will ask this question, and I want to say, so the money that was paid to hire the security and the policemen at the drag queen show, what line item, what budget, whose budget did it come out of specifically? Like, where would it be found on an accounting format? Also, the fact that it was said from this chief financial officer, who we should be able to put our faith in, whatever his answers were, they're just not true. Ms. Luna Rose, you and I both know, being on site councils and having kids in school, that those club activity funds are reported, and they're on a form every single year. So like, if mistakes happen, then they need to be owned. That's the other thing. If you guys make a mistake, or if somebody else makes a mistake, somebody needs to be honest and just own it and just tell the truth. That's what we're looking for, is the truth. So somebody needs to hold somebody accountable for not telling the truth. The days of the good old boys need to be over. You know, I had asked a couple of meetings back, do all the clubs, are they going to all get the same treatment? No, they're not, because I know they don't have the money to do that. Also, I want to say, you need to focus, again, like this gentleman said, on like, how do we improve the schools we have? Well, you can't just keep counting on this, saying the state's not giving us any money. What is TUSD doing to improve, to work with what you have? What if the bond fails? You need to adjust the budget accordingly. Booth Fickett, for instance, used to have 1,200 students. 1,200 students, it's a fabulous campus. It has 400 students. I mean, there's a lot of things you guys can fix. Cut the
Time.
budget appropriately.
Next up, Tara Radliff.
My name is Tara Radliff. I'm speaking on accountability. During the June 13th meeting, Chief Financial Officer, CFO Ricky Hernandez presented the summary of student activities funds for the period of July 1st of 22 through May 31st of 23. The CFO stated that if a revenue or expenditure was reported after the cutoff date, which was the end of May, then the info would appear on the next year's activity fund report. Please look at the document labeled 21 to 22 Tucson High Q space financials. In this document, it shows a revenue of $2,066 received on June 28 of 22. In this case, if you look at the document labeled 22 to 23 activity fund, you will see that the Q Space Club is not listed, even though the CFO stated it would be. Now, please look at the 22 to 23 Tucson High Q Space financial document. You will see an expenditure of $9.77 dated May 18th of 23. This occurred before the stated cutoff date, and yet again, the Q Space Club is not listed on the 22 to 23 activity fund report, even though they had a valid expenditure during the school year. During the June 13th meeting, the CFO stated that only clubs with revenues and expenditures would be on the Student Activities Fund report. Please look at the sampling of the 21-22 Activities Fund report, and there's actually a total of 18 clubs listed with no revenue and no expenditure. And on the 22 to 23 report, there are 2 clubs listed with no revenue or expenditure. So why is the Q Space Club not listed? Per the Uniform System of Financial Records for Arizona School Districts and ARS 151123A, at least once each calendar month, a report of cash receipts, disbursements, transfers, and cash balances of the Student Activities Fund must be submitted to the governing board. In researching, I looked at the Welcome to the Tucson Unified School District Transparency site and selected Tucson High for the summary of their club's monthly revenues, expenditures, and fund balances. I was unable to locate the Q Space Club on the extensive list of clubs listed for Tucson High. This site is supposed to be transparent to the public regarding funds for each club in TUSD. Please explain how keeping one specific club and its funds hidden is transparent. On June 13, you voted and approved the summary of student activities funds, which was clearly inaccurate and falsified. How will this be rectified? Why is this club being hidden from the public and you, the TUSD governing board? How will you make sure this doesn't happen again? As stated before, Mr. Hernandez was clearly failed to uphold the Arizona law that he's responsible for as CFO. How will you hold him accountable for violating that? Your governing board policies and state statutes, ARS 15341A22, give you the authority to take disciplinary actions. But will you? Thank you.
And Yolanda, it looks like Guadalupe Henninger to be read.
Good evening. My name is Guadalupe Henninger, and I want to speak about item 11.6, Pima County Early Education Programs, PEEP, contract renewal. I think TUSD should approve and accept Pima County funding for TUSD PEEPs, highly rated quality programs. Preschool gives the children the skills they need to have a head start when they enter kindergarten. The pandemic and inflation disrupted the ability of childcare. TUSD have the infrastructure to provide quality childcare, preschool, and after-school care if they get the funding from the nation, state, county, city, and the Department of Social Security. The pandemic and inflation has taken a toll on the students and their families. We need to use the American Rescue Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Infrastructure Act to help them. Other states provide free preschool and free meals for all. We parents should speak up to this on our school. It's the right thing to do. At the federal level, this is a new administration has been working hard for the people, but the U.S. House and U.S. Senate need to enact legislation to address price gouging, monopoly, antitrust, fair labor laws, and invest in the people. Raising interest rate alone is only hurting the labor market and is not addressing the root cause like predatory lending, price gouging, monopoly, antitrust, and unfair labor market. Sincerely, Guadalupe Henninger.
All right, this concludes the call to the audience.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Romero. Now is the opportunity for any board member who wish to respond to criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and hello everyone, and thank you all for speaking today. First, I want to thank Miss Helen over at Kellon for bringing those security issues to our attention. And if we could get a report and maybe have our director of school safety reach out to the school to get these things taken care of immediately. Let's see. And I'd also like to understand how it is that some subs who are attending these hard to fill schools are not getting the pay increase that we had promised them. My apologies to the subs for these ongoing issues. Let's see if we could get a report also about some of the inconsistencies with the student club reports that were addressed by Ms. Radliff. That would be fabulous. And let's see. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Mr. Romero.
Again, thank you, speakers, and bringing up something concerning, on this, especially with the information that we were delivered here today. Been doing a lot of research, it looks like, on your end. I don't know if I can talk to legal counsel or Dr. Trujillo on this regarding potential TUSD employee potentially misleading board members. What are consequences, or what goes through that? What does that process look like? Go ahead.
As a response to the call to the audience, you'll notice online for the July 1st through the July 1st through May 31st, 2023 report of club expenditures and revenue. There is a club that is named Tucson Technicolor Gay Straight Club. This is the formerly known as Q Space Club. It has changed its name. So going forward, you're going to see the club is renamed Technicolor Tucson High Technicolor Gay Straight Club. It has a beginning balance of $2,904.97. It took in $9.54 in additional revenues in the last 30 days, and it has an ending balance of $2,904. So that, if you're interested in that particular club, that is the new name of the club. Clubs will not show up on these types of reports until checks are cashed, until money is in the bank, until there's actual reported revenue.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I just want to welcome we have a different sea of red today, and thank you, Moms Band Action, for being here tonight. I love seeing seas of reds that we get here. Usually it's our Red for Ed union members, but tonight we have the Moms Band Action, and thank you for being here. And that same note, I know we had a couple of comments about school safety, and thank you, Mr. Thompson and Ms. Emmerich, for your comments on school safety, both at Gridley and in Kellon. We hear about this throughout our school district, and we see it ourselves when we visit schools or when we have kids in our schools. Almost all of us have kids in our schools on a daily basis in different campuses, elementary school, middle school, and high school campuses. And so, I recommend that you go online, to Google the TUSD bond. You can get more information about what is included in that bond package if it is passed by the voters this fall, including a number over $60 million in security upgrades, including fencing and gates, updated security locks on doors, window films, which makes it harder to shatter the windows. And so a lot of other things are included, and almost every school will have, if the voters decide to pass the bond, have security upgrades, physical security upgrades in the campuses. Ms. Lynn Rose.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. I just wanted to say, again, thank you everybody for coming this evening and giving us your views. Mr. Lopez, I wanted to say thank you for coming and speaking on the board. You send us emails about what's going on at Ross Scrooge and basketball, and you're always so enthusiastic, and I really appreciate your words to the community this evening. I hope that they're listening. And because two of my colleagues already spoke on the security issue, I will refrain. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, I will close our call to the audience this evening. and move us along to our consent agenda. Dr. Trujillo.
President Shaw, members of the governing board, I will make a small request before formally introducing the consent agenda. We do have an item 5.3 for the prospective appointment of 3 assistant principals. I do request a pause for photos upon potential successful passage of the consent agenda, which is inclusive of 5.3. With that, I'd like to formally present the consent agenda as arranged, items 5.2 through items 5.22 for governing board consideration for approval.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And for governing board members, before I ask for any items to be extracted, is there any items that we want some clarifying information about? Ms. Ekstrom?
514, please.
Any items you want other clarifying information? Ms. Shaw?
5.7.
5.7. And Mr. Romero?
5.4.
5.4.
Please.
All right, we'll go in order numerically. So 5.4 is approval of supplemental materials for culturally relevant pedagogy and instruction English courses for grades 6 to 12. Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
Okay, so again, learning, being in the spot over here, there's some things that pop up that I don't quite understand, and then reading some of these requests for board-approved textbooks or supplemental materials. And looks like there's a lot of supplemental materials on here, and then there's a cost that gets associated with them. And I see here on a lot of them, we have different teachers for these different types of books, and it's all under the culturally responsible pedagogy and instruction. What is the process? Why do teachers just say this is what needs to be in, I want this in my curriculum? Is this a 1 year type of 1 semester thing, a 1 year thing? Is it continue to go on year after year? I guess I want to understand how this textbook supplemental material works.
Yes, I'd like to welcome our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Dr. Flory Hewitt, and our Director for Curriculum Development, Ms. Heidi Aranda, to address these procedural questions.
Good evening, governing board members, Dr. Trujillo and legal counsel. So to your question, Dr. Romero, I'm sorry, Val Romero, you asked, with supplemental materials, once they're approved by the governing board, they stay within as part of our supplemental materials. So they're approved for the longevity of the curriculum.
Okay, and so like a lot of these teachers that are putting it on here, so we'll just say, like on one of them, look here, Julie Thompson. So this, and then for the cost of this is estimated is going to be $769. So is this going to be that cost every year for new books on this one? Or they do replacements, or what's the cost breakdown? How does that work out?
So these books are actually from our Department of Culturally Responsive Pedagogy and Instruction. They reside in a checkout library. So this set of books can be checked out by teachers that are teaching the courses specifically that include those in the curriculum.
And is that with all of the ones that we're voting on, or that is all the
Yes.
same? They're all from the library? Mm-hmm. Now, are there other times when they're going to be different supplementals where they're part of the classroom?
So these books are included in the curriculum of these specific courses. So teachers, for cost purposes, teachers check them out, and then another teacher can check them out. So it's just more cost effective to do it that way. And this is, to be clear, it's a library for teachers, not for students.
Okay, library for teachers. And then so like on some of them, there's one requested for 70 copies, another one for 60 copies. Is it based on the amount of students that are at these different schools or the library, or how do we come up with these amount of books that, we put on here?
So yes, there are specific amounts of courses that use these books. And these are numbers that, they have figured out what is the right quantity over years, because we've had these courses for many years. So this is just an average amount of books that is needed to meet the needs of those teachers that teach those courses.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. I just wanted to get some more information on how these things get put into there, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, no problem.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hewitt and Ms. Aranda. We're going to go to item 5.7, the IGA, regarding rehabilitation services, transition of school to work program. Ms. Shaw, you have some questions about this one?
Yes, thank you. So when I'm looking at this item on board docs, the dollar amount is listed as $937,200. But then when opening the attachment for the IGA amendment, it reads that the annual budget for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 is revised from $1,864,000 to $2,200,000. So just curious about the difference with these dollar amounts.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Dr. Salmon to the podium to address the funding source and the amount.
Yes, good evening, Board President, Board members, Dr. Trujillo, Legal Counsel. So that has to do with, we come up with the budget based on an estimate of how many students we anticipate will participate in the program, and then that's the actual expense for the students. And so there's a weighted formula depending on the student's disability and the services that they're provided. And so we get an estimate up front, and we go through the orientation and enrollment process and through the year. So the actual invoice is based on the exact cost versus the initial estimate.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Do you have a number of how many students we served with this?
Yes, we served 18 students with this, and so we tend to range from about 15 to 25 students, just depending on the year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Salmon. We don't get to hear from you very often. Great to see you. And then finally, we had some questions about 5.14, temporary staffing services. Ms. Ekstrom.
Yes, Dr. Trujillo, if you could just give a brief overview on what the temporary staffing services would be, and in particular, how we're not specifically outsourcing positions.
Yes, thank you, Governing Board Member Ekstrom. I'd like to welcome our Chief Human Capital Officer, John Fernandez, to the podium. And then on standby, if there's any questions about procurement, we have our Purchasing Director, Diana Kierfoot.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. President, and thanks for the question. These are services that the board has previously approved to support the ongoing needs of our schools. And so, if we look back over the last 5 years, there's been a spend of about $2.6 million to support temp staffing services over the last 5 years. Most of this is happening on the operational side. So it's really, we're looking at food services where you're seeing we see a lot of turnover among staffing. So in the interim, while we're trying to fill positions through our normal hiring process, the food services division can go ahead and move forward to provide temp staffing. They account for about 60% of the need for temp staffing. And so that's really, where we're going to see most of the impact. The second area is going to be transportation, so around bus drivers, trying to keep services running at the same time that we're moving through our hiring process. We want our hiring process to be quick, but of course services are needed on a daily basis. So to the extent that the departments can access temp staffing in the interim, this allows them to do so.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to provide some transparency for some people who may have had questions.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Trio.
Package that's up for board consideration tonight of potential vendors, is it also inclusive of temp services that assist with one-on-ones that are assigned to, that could be assigned to students throughout the district? Maybe that's more of a Sabrina question, or is that a separate?
It's available. Okay. So we work with the various departments to come up with a estimated need, budget, and so forth, and then the departments can request for temp staffing.
Okay.
And we've identified vendors who are able to provide. So once there's identified need, they can go forward and access this contract.
Because we do know that one of our other big needs is when our parapros have to be out sick or
Correct.
when they're missed work, we need somebody standing in, or when we have one-on-one aides to be
Absolutely.
compliant with IEP requirements, we need a daily to step in. And echoing what Governing Board Member Ekstrom said, we believe in local jobs for our local community. This is not outsourcing of positions. This is filling a daily operational need until hiring processes can be finalized and candidates can be selected. So appreciate the opportunity for transparency.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Romero.
Just one more question going back. I forgot to ask after I put it away. There was 10-day review. Do we have any reviews on any of these supplementals?
Yes, thank you for the question. We received about 8 reviews for the supplemental materials, all positive number 5s that we received, and I'm happy to share that with you as well.
No, I just wanted to find out what it was. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. And governing board members, we have before us consent items 5.2 through 5.22. Are there any extractions before we move for vote for them? Seeing none, I'll move to approve items 5.2 to 5.22.
I'll second.
A motion made by myself, second by Ms. Luna Rose. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. And I want to congratulate our new assistant principals, our returning assistant principals. We're going to be celebrating the new assistant principal or continuing assistant principal at Hollinger K-8, Catherine Arnquist-Burke. Congratulations on a permanent position. And we have 2 interim assistant principal positions. The first at White Elementary School, Carmen Alvarez. And an interim assistant principal at Saguaro High School, R.J. Lundstrom. Congratulations. And we'll take a brief pause so that we can take some photos and everyone can take a quick break. We'll reconvene in 3 minutes. No one ever listens to me, but I'll say 3 minutes.
Funny. How true it was.
Colin told you to do that.
We should have a bet going.
All right, I'm going to call. All right, we did actually take a very quick break, and I'm going to call us back into order to get things moving along in our agenda this evening. All right, we're going to go to item 6. We're going to recess our regular meeting into a public hearing.
Everybody's listening.
So the governing board is now holding a public hearing on the fiscal year 24 annual expenditure budget. Members of the public may speak during the annual expenditure budget hearing portion of the agenda. The board president, which is myself, shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining proper order by setting such limitations as may be appropriate. Speakers during the public hearing should restrict their remarks to topics related to the annual expenditure budget. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time limit of 2 minutes. Individuals speaking before the board shall observe rules of propriety and good conduct and to refrain from impertinent or slanderous remarks. Ms. Penny, do we have any speakers for our annual budget? Okay. Thank you. All right, Pilar Ruiz.
I get 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm Pilar Ruiz again. All right, so before you vote on the budget, again, I want you to seriously contemplate voting on a budget that is sustainable if the bond doesn't pass. It would be wonderful if the bond passes and you can celebrate, but if it doesn't, we don't need to be in more of a hole than we already are. Also, shoot, I didn't bring it up here. In 2017, the bond was only for $180 million, and it was a 59% vote that it lost. We're now asking for like a whole bunch more money. So please be realistic and stop blaming the state. Do the really hard and painful thing and take an honest look at cutting the budget. I mean, you got to do it. Okay, I'm going to gather my thoughts. The district is bleeding, right? And we can't wait until a bond passes to take care of Kelland. You know, if a student ends up getting hurt, or God forbid, a teacher or a kid, I mean, you got to take care of the priorities of the schools now, which means you have to take a look at the budget as it reflects today. What can you do with the budget tomorrow to take care of our kids? You can't wait on a dream, even though I hope it passes. We got to be realistic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. All right, so just kind of just a step back. We have two recesses and two different items. We have the public meeting for the budget, and then we'll have an action item for the budget, and we have a public meeting again for truth and taxation, and then there's a action item for that as well. And so that concludes the public hearing for the budget. And I'm going to reconvene into our regular meeting, item 7.1, and then we have the item 8.1, adoption of the fiscal year 24 TUSD annual expenditure budget. I'll turn it over to Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, I'd like to welcome our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Ricky Hernandez, to walk us through one final time, even though there really is no difference between tonight's information and the night of the 13th. For public transparency, we would like to ask Mr. Hernandez to give one final walkthrough of the prospective adopted district budget.
Good evening, board members. So before you is the fiscal year 2024 adopted budget presentation. This is the adoption of the proposed limits that you approved on June the 13th. This is going to be kind of repetitive in terms of a lot of information you've already seen. This is really to reiterate and to present to you and the community items, as Dr. Trujillo's mentioned, that you've already seen in the last several months that we've presented to you different components of the fiscal year 24 budget. So just a couple of items, I'll go over the budget factors again that are included in this adopted presentation. What are the approved budget limits that you approved on June the 13th? A quick overview of the desegregation budget, an overview of property taxes and the levies that are going to be imposed, and an estimate of the classroom spending for fiscal year 24 based on the adopted budget. So the incorporated budget factors within this current budget are as follows. There is a 2% base support level increase, which is the inflationary requirement under state statute to all school districts and charter schools in Arizona. The impact to TUSD is just over $7.4 million. There is an additional base support level increase. That's the per pupil amount that is provided for every student at every school district school and every charter school across Arizona. A 0.92% increase. This is a result of the elimination of the results-based funding formula that was in place up until the end of June. So this now provides an additional $2.4 million to the budget. An increase to the teacher experience index. As you recall, based on the average number of years of our teachers to the average number of years of teachers across Arizona, because our experience is greater than the state's, we received about an additional $2.5 or $2.1 million in additional M&O. In fiscal year 23, the state legislature imposed a new grade, well, they didn't impose, they created a new grade B weight funding formula for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunches. This formula is meant to go up every fiscal year through fiscal year 25. So when I come back to you this time next year, you will see an additional increase in addition to what we received today. Overall, statewide, this is about $13 million. Our portion is about $769,000. There is also a capital funding increase that is provided. Part of this 9.38% increase includes a 2% permanent inflationary increase that is set by the legislature. This is the first time in history that there is a capital funding inflationary increase subject to legislative appropriation, an impact of $2 million. Finally, a one-time allocation to district schools and charter schools of $300 million across the state. Again, I reiterate, this is a one-time allocation that comes from the one-time surplus in the state coffers that is being distributed to public schools. Currently, the estimated impact is $13.1 million. This one number is subject to change. In July, the state of Arizona will do what's called a recalculation of all our student counts. They will go through all of our student attendance across the entire state, all 1.1 million kids, to try to determine and make sure that the amount of inflationary increases, the amount of weighted students that we calculated are essentially the correct ones so that we can essentially true up our budget. This is a process that happens every year in the month of July. That number is going to be used to apply to that $300 million. So potentially that $13 million will change. If and when it does, we will report that back to the governing board. But at this point, this is our best estimate based on the information that we had at the time that I pulled this information from the State Department of Education. These were the approved budget limits. This is identical to what was presented to you previously. The M&O budget currently has a $394,924,920 budget limit that you approved on June the 13th. This is an increase of almost $23.5 million year over year to the May revision that you adopted back in the month of May. The unrestricted capital outlay has $37.8 million as the budget limit that you approved again on June 13th. This is a decrease of $854,000, and the only reason this is a decrease is because we're moving $2 million out of our capital fund to fund a portion of our M&O dollars. If this $2 million had stayed, there would actually be an increase of over $1.2 million to this specific budget. But ultimately, we are receiving an increase, except that increase we have transferred over to the M&O budget. The breakdown of the $37.8 million has been presented to you in the month of April. The major components of what various capital investments are being provided in transportation, curriculum and instruction, facilities management, and technology services. Desegregation. As you all know, the desegregation budget has been frozen since the 2009-2010 fiscal year at $63.7 million. Essentially, we are only able to move within the budgeted categories. These are the various USP categories that the desegregation is comprised of. And we're only able really to move wherever the allocations need to go in order to fund the various USP activities. So this is why you don't really see a difference. The $2 difference is a rounding issue, but ultimately $63.7 million is what we see year over year. Property taxes. So tax rates, the statutory formula for tax rates is very prescriptive for school districts. We do not have the capacity, like our cities and counties do, to provide for increases in our budget, our operating budget in particular, our capital budget as well, without the approval of the voters. These taxes are simply to fund the base support that we don't receive from the state legislature. School districts receive a component of property taxes and state equalization. Based on a formula using the qualifying tax rate, I'm getting a little technical, but based on the formula that's applied there, the state will say, this is how much we'll give to you, this is how much your taxpayers need to contribute. In some instances, we do have school districts in Pima County who receive no state aid, and their taxpayers pay for 100% of their budget. That's not the case in TUSD. So we do receive approximately $150 million from the state. So almost half of our budget is funded by the state. The other half is funded by our local tax base. It is broken out by the various components you see there: our base rate, the funding for transportation, our dropout prevention programs. There is a tax rate for the part of the government property lease excise tax. That's the incentives that the cities and the counties give to business owners, essentially, to construct and not pay property taxes. We need to redistribute what we're not collecting to the rest of the tax base because we still need to collect those taxes. And the adjacent ways, which we'll talk further down the line. On the secondary side, the full $63.7 million is $1.56. Our debt service for our current bonds that are currently outstanding and will be paid for by fiscal year 30, 37 cents. So our overall tax rate is just over $55.54. When you apply it to a home, you see it on the right-hand side. It's actually a decrease of almost $21 year over year for every $100,000 home or value of a home. So about $397 compared to $418 in the past year. And that's just the mechanics of the fact that the valuation across Pima County has gone up. And so we need to collect fewer taxes essentially from our tax base to fund the same amount of budget capacity. This is a breakdown just of the classroom spending estimate based on the adopted budget that is being presented to you. We're estimating 53.5% of our overall budget will go into instruction. Essentially, over 3/4 of our budget will go to support students and teachers in one form or another, that being that through direct instruction, support services like special education and exceptional education, and instructional support services like professional development to our teachers. I've provided you with a 3-year classroom spending estimate trend so that you can see what we've actually done in the last 3 fiscal years in the major categories that the Auditor General provides. And I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Governing board members. We talked about the budget a lot over the last couple of meetings. Is there any additional questions, comments, feedback? Seeing none, I will move the item to approve the fiscal year 24 budget.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And it looks like we got a vote online as well on board docs, governing board members, if you haven't seen it. Okay. Mr. Hernandez is not going to be going very far. We have item 9. We're going to recess our regular meeting into another public hearing. And this one is for truth in taxation, notice of tax increase. The governing board is now holding a public hearing on the truth in taxation, notice of tax increase. Members of the public may speak during the truth in taxation public hearing portion of the agenda. The board president and myself shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining proper order by setting such limitations as may be appropriate. Speakers during the public hearing should restrict their remarks to the topics related to the truth in taxation, notice of tax increase. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time limit of 2 minutes. Individuals speaking before the board shall observe rules of propriety and good conduct and refrain from impertinent or slanderous remarks. Ms. Payne, do we have any speakers?
No, we do not.
Okay. Without no speakers, I'm going to conclude our recess into the truth in taxation public hearing and reconvene into our regular meeting and move us to item 11.1, approval of tax levy increase pursuant to ARS 15905.01. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, I'd like to welcome Ricky back to cover our adjacent ways request as part of the truth in taxation public hearing process.
Okay, so this is a presentation regarding the adjacent ways truth in taxation. With this board agenda item, there was a copy of the published truth in taxation notice that was published in the Arizona Daily Star at the end of June to actually provide just kind of a copy and evidence to everybody that the truth in taxation was published according to statute. So I'll just, really quick, this is going to be a really quick presentation. What is adjacent ways? How do we fund it? What does the property tax look like? And then I'll take any questions that you may have surrounding adjacent ways. So what is it? This is essentially to construct, improve, and maintain public rights of way. So adjacent to the property in the school, adjacent to the property across the school district, the intersection that's within a quarter of a block of a school, sidewalks, sewers, utility lines, anything that ingresses or egresses to the school, so driveways into a parking lot or driveways into, a loading dock, for example. All of these projects that are designed by our facilities management and our project management group have to be submitted for approval to the School Facilities Oversight Board. It is a requirement for them to approve all of these projects to make sure that they meet the intent of the law. Now, these cannot be used for any of those improvement types or for any general capital improvements within a school. So we can't use this to fix the plumbing in a gym. We cannot use this to fix a deteriorating roof, a wall, an air conditioning, any of that stuff other than what's limited to the items that the statute says. This is essentially adjacent, just as exactly as it says, this is adjacent to the property line of any of our school district properties or our schools in general. So how is it funded? It is funded through a primary property tax. I showed you in the previous presentation that it is part of our primary property tax levy. It requires a truth in taxation hearing and a notice to the community that we will hold a public hearing, which was published at the end of June. Under state law, this is technically considered a tax increase, even though year over year, this tax rate is actually going down. This is just the way the statute is printed. We have to hold this anytime we want to actually levy for adjacent ways. So for this year, we're looking to levy $1 million like we did last year. The tax rate is going to be basically 2.5 cents. It's going to drop by 9 cents overall. So last year we were levying about $2.55. This year we're levying about $2.46. So just under a dime in order to collect $1 million to fund these adjacent waste projects that go throughout the school district. And once again, we won't spend these dollars until the School Facilities Oversight Board gives us the okay to move forward with the projects. Once the projects are approved, we will fund these and facilities management will take these over. I will take any questions.
All right, Ms. Luna Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Maybe this is more a Dr. Trujillo question. When we're talking about adjacent ways, do we, and once the FSB approves, do we go into any sort of IGAs with the city in terms of egress and ingress and anything that's, like, I'm thinking about like Vale Middle School that's on the corner of Craycroft near Broadway.
It depends on what the project is. For example, we're working on something right now with the city with regard to sidewalk repair over at Safford. And that's something that has been in the works for quite a long time, working with Armory Park Neighborhood Association and working with the city. That's going to be partially funded by adjacent ways on our end. And then there's going to be some matching funds from the city. In that kind of an instance, yes, there would be some kind of an agreement that would memorialize funding commitments. And those types of agreements we would be able to pursue depending on the need of the school.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, do you have any examples of past adjacent waste fund projects?
So a lot of our sidewalk projects, for example, our parking lot entrances and exits, for example, that would probably be, I don't know if Blaine is around here, but that would probably be a question better suited for him. But
yeah,
you're in luck.
We can invite our Chief Operations Officer, Blaine. I think probably the most visible usage of adjacent ways funds is the work that was done along 6 with Tucson High, with the walkway now running down the middle of the road and the rails that have prevented a lot of I hate to use the word jaywalking, let's say the illegal crossing of the street by young people outside of crosswalks, which was a huge issue prior to that work. But that's probably one of the most visible visible projects. And then we have the McCorkle parking lot. If you haven't been to the McCorkle parking lot and sort of the restructuring of it to address a lot of the traffic issues that were happening before and after school, but a little bit more of a deeper dive.
Thank you, Dr. Trio. And Dr. Trio is absolutely right. Those are two perfect examples. Another is what we're doing over at Pister for drainage and working with the city and county over there for improving the drainage over there and ingress and egress into that campus. But those are the types of projects this typically does.
Okay, and yeah, with $1 million, that's doesn't seem to go very far with some of these projects, right? Because there's only like a handful of any like improvement projects on the road. It's like significant amount of money. So I imagine like
Yeah.
within one calendar year, it'll be like one project.
Yeah, and these projects tend to take a long time. There has to be the engineering studies and all that go with that, and we have to work collaboratively with the local government to do that. And then we have to go through the SFB process to actually get it funded.
Okay, and I'm wondering, like, why are we doing like another tax levy when this is on city property? Even if it leads sort of into one of our schools, like, why are we taking on that burden?
It depends on who's responsible for what. Once we come on our property, that's our responsibility. Anything outside of our property line is the responsibility of them. But these projects have to involve both parties because the improvements and the ingress and egress are typically the kind of projects when it's coming onto our property that we do, including like over at Pister, how the water drains and the issues that drainage can create if it's not re-engineered so that it's draining properly. And those projects just tend to take a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Romero.
And how is it decided which projects are next? Is there like a line list of things? Then every year we do that. This is the next one that's up in line?
That's correct. And there's just much like with our facilities condition index, and we're prioritizing the work that we pursue based on FCI. This work is prioritized in the same way. The project that Dr. True referred to, McCorkle, has been a long-standing issue with traffic flow in and out of that campus.
And where would we be able to find this list of these types of projects?
We can provide that. Damon Ballesteros and his team maintain that, and we can provide that to the board.
I would like that, please.
Okay, sure.
Dr. Trujillo.
Because sometimes we get the public gets anxious and they want to see that every single year we're zeroing out our adjacent ways budget. We can provide you projects. However, I think Mr. Young said something key. They have to be approved by the State School Facilities Board. That's a slow and arduous process. So though we may have 6 or 7 projects that would drain out the entirety of our levy, we might only get 2 through in a year. And so there's a constant kind of backlog. It just depends on how fast the School Facilities Board can approve projects. So when we go through them, we try to put in front of them the biggest and the most expansive projects first, like the McCorkle project, that we know if we're going to have to go through them and we're going to have to go through the lag in time and getting on their agenda, we want to make it a big, large, expansive project because we know just how slow that entity could work at times.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Is there a citizen oversight committee formed for this fund?
No, there is not. There is not a citizen oversight committee.
So who oversees it?
It follows the same budgetary process as any of our other funds, so it is budget limited. We can never spend more than the budget that's in there. In the budget forms that you have in front of you, the budget for this is actually $2 million because there is cash left over for projects that have not been completed that are still ongoing from the prior year levy when you levied the $1 million last year. We're levying another $1 million to continue to fund projects that are coming on deck. But in terms of how we spend it, I mean, SFOB is really our oversight. They have to say whether these are eligible for adjacent ways under the definition, which is why the state government put that in place as a check and balance to prevent schools from using it for general capital projects, and rather using it for projects that are actually meant to be for adjacent ways.
Okay, so the SFO board is sort of like
the
oversight committee?
Yes. Yeah, we have to get actual approval from them. And Dr. Trujillo's mentioned the arduous process. We have to provide them engineering, architectural schematics. We have to provide them information regarding our city and county relationships, who takes what the share of it is, how the benefit is going to happen. I mean, every component. So we're kind of at their disposal in terms of the information they need to qualify the project for approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I will move the item, and it needs to be a roll call to increase the property tax levy by $1 million. set a tax rate of 0.0246 to fund the adjacent ways for fiscal year 24.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Pena, we need a roll call for state law on this one.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes.
Dr. Ravi?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hernandez. All right. We're going to go on to item 11.2, Legacy of Excellence Week, Proclamation for EDI. Dr. Trujillo.
It goes without saying that the Legacy of Excellence banquet and celebration in April is one of the iconic celebrations in the district of African American student success. And in support of the Legacy of Excellence Foundation and their work, we have a recommendation this evening to declare the week of August 21st and 25th Legacy of Excellence Week. Here to read the prospective resolution is Dr. Kanasha Brown, our Assistant Superintendent for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, Dr. Trujillo, and good evening, council. As we stand here united, I'll be reading the proclamation. I also want you to know that with our Legacy of Excellence, we have some board members here as well. And so the proclamation reads as follows: A Legacy of Excellence Awareness Week. Whereas Tucson Unified School District's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusiveness Department will partner with community organizations to serve our students by eliminating the manifestations of racism, discrimination, exclusion, and prejudice by focusing on spaces of inclusion and creating access. Whereas every student in the Tucson Unified School District is entitled to a high-quality education regardless of race, gender, zip code, ability, socioeconomic, and or language spoken at home. And whereas the core values of diversity, equity, excellence, integrity, innovation, and a caring community truly drive our commitment to eliminating the opportunity gap for students. And whereas the Tucson Unified School District and the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusiveness take pride in recognizing August 15th to September 15th as Equity, Diversity, and Inclusiveness Month. And further, we dedicate August 21st to August 25th as a Legacy of Excellence Week, celebrating our partnership while acknowledging and working to create access to post-secondary opportunities for TUSD underrepresented students. And whereas a Legacy of Excellence Awareness Week is a celebration of equity in Tucson and provides an opportunity to highlight our educational priorities, as well as the incredible work that is happening in our schools across Tucson Unified School District. Whereas educational equity, diversity, and inclusiveness will only be achieved through collaborative work of state and local policymakers and the dedication of local school boards, district superintendents, school administrators, teachers, support staff, and community groups. Therefore, the Governing Board of Tucson Unified School District does hereby proclaim August 21st through 25th as a Legacy of Excellence Awareness Week. And I would just like to add that this organization has been serving this community for the past 14 years. They're entering their 14th year. And over that time, they have raised and given almost, I'm going to give a conservative number, but it's over $400,000 to make sure, absolutely, to make sure that all students achieve their dreams of going on to post-secondary. I don't know what I do next. I feel awkward. Does somebody move it? Do I stand to the side?
All right,
I'd like to move the item.
All right, Ms. Shaw has moved the item.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. Any discussion?
Real quick, I just want to thank you all for your work on this, for your longtime work with the Legacy of Excellence. I love to attend it every year, and I can see on the students' faces who are chosen that it means a lot to them, and I'm sure it makes a huge difference in their college career. So thank you.
And then Dr. Shaw.
Ms. Luna Rose.
Thank you. Second year that I attended Legacy of Excellence, and I didn't realize it really meant all white because I wore black and white, so I felt like I stood out this year. But it's always a wonderful event, and to see these students and their parents and the joy that's in that room, the work that you do does not go unnoticed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we have a vote, Dr. Brown, could you introduce the members who are up here with you?
I'm so sorry. Absolutely. We have a Legacy of Excellent board member, Miss Rebecca Ballinger. We also have Miss Natalie Clark. We have board member Mr. Larry Chapman. And I don't know who this guy is, but I'm just going to call him Jeffrey Sawyer, board member.
Great. Thank you for all of your work and everything you're doing, raising these funds and helping pick some of the most amazing students for this. And so, Ms. Shah.
Yes, I'm just wondering if any of you would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I will. The shy one. I just want to thank everybody for making this happen. This is really overwhelming. We just really appreciate it. We also recognize that this could not happen without, again, all our community members. I work for TUSD, but these other folks don't. So the time that they volunteer in order to make this happen. We also recognize that it could not happen without an amazing superintendent, an amazing assistant superintendent of EDI, Ms. Kanasha Brown, and also a board such as you folks who show foresight and recognize that a legacy of excellence not only changes the students' lives, but their families' lives, our community. And so, again, we're very humbled by this, and we just really want to thank all of you. And again, and also our media department, because they play a big part in all of this. Our next event will be May 4th, 2024, African American attire. I'm looking forward to seeing Dr. Shaw and Mr. Romero with their African American attire on. So anyway, thank you guys once again, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Shaw and a second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so give me a second. I'm going on May 4th, 24 and put it on my calendar. All right. Next item, 11.3, Smart Resolution Update. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, I'd like to welcome our Assistant Superintendent for Leadership and Student Success, Mr. Frank Armenta, and District Avid Coordinator Kathy Jensen, though in tonight's role as a co-lead of Tucson Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, for a resolution for firearm safety and the safe and responsible storage of firearms in the home for governing board consideration.
Good evening, board president and board members, as well as Dr. Trujillo and legal counsel and board staff. It's an honor to bring this item up forward to you as the governing board. Tonight's item is a recommitment to our community about safe gun storage, and I would like Catherine Jensen to explain a little bit about that. We've also provided you some information here that she'll review over the card.
So this is an update to the resolution that was passed in March 2020, which is a lifetime ago. Arizona does not have a state law for secure, safe firearms storage. And so this is just a reminder of being smart for responsible gun ownership to secure those firearms in the home. That's what the resolution states, along with some statistics. The SMART actually is an acronym. It's on the card that I gave to Ms. Pena, but it's basically the adult's responsibility to secure their firearms. And on the Be Smart for Kids website, it talks about what that means, model responsible gun ownership, ask about unsecured guns in the home, we really like to highlight the A. As students go over and kids go over to different homes to have play dates, we encourage parents and guardians to ask if there are firearms in the home, and if so, are they secured? It's one of those questions that can go along with, is there a pool, an offense, a peanut butter allergy, just to really keep that student safe, the child safe. Recognize the role of guns in suicide, and also for T, tell your friends and neighbors to be smart. So this is the adult's ownership. It does not involve the child knowing this. It's really on responsible gun ownership of the adult.
And what we're asking tonight is for us to agree again to the resolution. In addition to that, we're asking a little furthermore to place SMART on our district website so parents can look for more information on their own. And again, we want to emphasize that this is really about adults, and we are not taking a political stand, but just being responsible citizens and educating our community about the SMART. So that's our ask for tonight. Any questions?
Dr. Shaw?
Ms. Shaw, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the resolution. My question is, I guess, how does your organization define secure, or how do you recommend we secure firearms in our home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the firearm should be locked and stored separately from the ammunition, which should also be locked and stored, ideally in a gun safe. We also, whenever we're tabling or do presentations, we offer the free gun locks from the Pima County Attorney's Office, which is a trigger lock. We also have those. But the definition would be ammunition and firearm separate, both secured in a locked storage cabinet.
For any other questions or comments, do we want to read the resolution?
You want to?
Mr. Armento or Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, well, yeah, if we can. Well,
do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do it as a duet, whatever you prefer.
We work together.
We
so
make a
long.
good team.
Yeah, we do
So.
make a good team. So I don't mind reading it
Okay, go
together.
ahead.
Well, together, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas evidence strongly suggests that secure firearms storage is an essential component to any effective strategy to keep schools and students safe. Whereas an estimated 4.6 million American children live in households with at least one loaded, unlocked firearm. Whereas every year, roughly 350 children under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. That's roughly one unintentional shooting per day, and 70% of these incidents take place inside a home. Whereas another 1,200 children and teens die by gun suicide each year, most often using guns belonging to a family member. Whereas in incidents of gun violence on school grounds, 75% of active shooters are current students or recent graduates, and up to 80% of shooters under the age of 18 obtain their guns from their own home, or relatives' home, or from friends. Whereas research shows that secure firearms storage practices are associated with up to an 85% reduction in the risk of unintentional firearm injuries among children and teens. Whereas the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center recommends the importance of appropriate storage of weapons because many school attackers use firearms acquired from their homes. Whereas across the country, lawmakers, community members, and local leaders are working together to implement public awareness campaigns such as the Be Smart program, which is endorsed by the National PTA, which encourages secure gun storage practices and highlights the public safety risks of unsecured guns. Whereas school districts across the country have begun to proactively send materials home to parents and guardians, informing them of applicable firearm storage laws and firearm secure storage best practices. Whereas keeping students, teachers, and staff safe from the threat of gun violence should be the responsibility of all adult stakeholders at each of our school sites. Whereas in order to continue with preventable measures to increase student and school safety, we must act now. Therefore, be it resolved that board directs the superintendent and staff to update the district websites to include information about the secure storage of firearms. Resolve further that the board and the superintendent will continue to work with local law enforcement agencies, the mayor's office for the city of Tucson, health agencies, and nonprofits to collaborate and increase efforts to inform district parents about secure storage of firearms in their homes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful duet.
I was trying to keep up.
You know, as a family physician, my organization, American Academy of Family Physicians, and many others, American Academy of Pediatrics, and others who are really addressing public health and safety, especially for youth, have oftentimes talked about how we need to do more as a community on the public health aspects of reducing gun violence. And so I'm glad that TUSD is taking these steps tonight to update past resolutions and move forward on some of the promises that we make to really try to educate our community on how we can be safer if there are guns in the home, to help make sure that our kids are safer and we reduce violence as much as we can throughout our community. So thank you for the months of work and bearing with me on trying to bring this to fruition tonight.
Dr. Shaw?
Ms. Luna Rose.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and appreciated the duet. I just want to say thank you so much, and to the ladies in the front there, thank you for coming this evening. Really appreciate, and I'm happy to see you. And I'm glad that we're hopefully going to be passing this, but also a little sad that we're going to have to try to pass this as well. But I appreciate your efforts, and please keep in contact with us.
Dr. Shaw?
Ms. Ekstrom.
I would also like to thank moms for being here today and for this resolution. I think it's been far too long since 2020 that, you know, we really needed to update this and to make sure that we are telling our parents and guardians, you know, how to secure guns. It's the least we can do. So thank you.
Dr.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And if I didn't say it on my last comment, thank you to the moms and the dads and all of you at your organization who are organizing for this. I'm just wondering about like the collaborative efforts that we have with your organization and our school district. Are we sending this out to every parent in the school, or can we either digitally or like, you know, in print? And also to go a step further, I don't know if we can poll parents or anything, or at least put on some of the emails or information that we give to them directly, you know, that if they want like a trigger lock, we have them available at the office, or, you know, even so much so like if we could work with like someone who produces gun safes. Thank you. If we could work with someone who, you know, has gun safes to give them a discount to purchase so that we could secure guns that are in our TUSD homes.
Board Member Shaw, great suggestion. As you can see within the board resolution, there is opportunities for us as a district to work with Pima County on some of those suggestions. But at this point, we really want to stress the idea of having parents accessing this information at our website, and again, having them with their own curiosity and to explore that themselves. Again, I just want to make sure we take small steps, and hopefully these small changes will lead into the big ones that you want us to look at and hopefully move in that direction. But at this point, we're really looking at just getting our website with this information at Be Smart, and then also the resolution identifies opportunities for us to collaborate. And since I will be leading this, I will be more than happy to work with your suggestions also with Be Smart and their organization as well.
And can we go back to the resolve clause? The resolve clauses at the end of this document. And so our resolution, I'll move the item tonight. So the motion includes the two resolve clauses here that will direct our website updating so that information on gun safety storage and firearm locks and other kinds of things are available readily to parents that are perusing our website or going to their own school's websites or looking at other activities and events. We'll see this come up, and they can click on that so they can get to more information about how to be a safer gun owner at the home with kids. And then the second resolve clause is directing our superintendent and our district to work with nonprofit organizations like Moms Demand Action and others, and governmental organizations to continue working on education and other means to really help reduce this. And so I will move this item tonight.
I will second. I'll let Ms. Ekstrom take it.
Second.
All right, item is moved by myself and seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a lot of items in our action agenda tonight, so we're going to move right along to 11.4, approval of invitation for bid for pest control services district-wide.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board, this is an item that was flagged at the June 13th meeting. We were tasked with going back and asking some very, very direct questions, doing some due diligence around the nature of the chemicals to be used as part of this contract with regard to safety on our school campuses. And here with a report out and some recommendations is our Director for Purchasing and Procurement, Diana Kierfoot, and our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Blaine Young.
Thank you, Dr. Trio, and good evening again, Governing Board. This evening, Ms. Kierfoot and I will give you a recap of doing that due diligence. We met with the vendor that was on the BAI when we were here last time when this was on consent. And we have some recap important facts to share with the board that will help understand these products and how they're managed, how they're used. The first thing, and I think some of these are going to be somewhat obvious, some of them I think really kind of highlight the products that are used. So the products used and treatment protocols that go along with them comply with all state laws. Essential is the vendor that's in question inspects the environment prior to product application. In other words, they take a very customized approach to any time they're using the products based on the particular need on our school campuses. They're assessing the dosage, how much is needed, the environment. They also are looking at the best time to apply it so that there isn't any risk to people on the campus. Their staff all have extensive training on product use. This is something that we spent a fair amount of time talking about, and they wanted to emphasize how trained their staff were in the management of the products. Essential historically did try to use green products for customers, but in multiple cases had to revert back to industry products at customer request because green products were found to be ineffective. In other words, when the application was made for something that would typically be done on a monthly basis or over the course of multiple months, the frequency increased notably where they would have to come back almost weekly to get any of the same outcomes that they were getting from the traditional products. And they made categorically the statement that while green products exist, very often, this is the outcome. The one green product they do use is for termite treatment. That product has proven to be as effective as other traditional products, and so they do use that in their lineup. So where they are doing termite treatment for TUSD at any of our facilities, our schools, that is a green product that they're using. And then another important point that kind of ties back to what I said earlier about the assessment, when they do the treatments, they work directly with the campus staff to pick the best time when there's going to be least concern about others, whether adults or especially children, but around the areas that are being treated. They do proper notification, and they also put signage up and work with the local staff to make sure that that signage stays up until it's certain that it's been diluted. So that's the recap of that, Diana. Is there anything you want to add to that? Okay. So we certainly will take any questions you have, but we wanted to bring that back to the board so you understood why the products are used as opposed to green products.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you both for doing your due diligence and going out there and finding like a greener pest control. So this, I noticed on the attachments with this that there are a significant amount of like traps or sticky strips, right, that would be used by this vendor, which is, it's a win because, if we poison the rat, then whatever eats the rat will also be poisoned. So I think this is a win. Although we can't get green things for every single thing, I'm happy with this item as it's presented. So thank you for your work.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
Is that a motion, Ms. Shaw?
Yes, I'd like to move this item. Thank you.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion. Second, Ms. Luna Rose, did you want to say something else?
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback off Ms. Shaw, that you really did your due diligence, and I do appreciate it. and then I appreciate Ms. Shaw for pushing this a little bit more, because I'm under the, I don't sometimes always think of like the rats and then the owl's gonna eat the rat and, you know, or the lizard or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm anti-cockroach. So when I see cockroach, you know, I got berate and that's what I'm doing. So I really appreciate you making the extra effort, especially as school's starting and we want to start off as safe as possible.
Yep, and we were glad to do it. Yep.
Thank you.
Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 11.5, blanket approval for high school and middle school participation in the fine and performing arts non-athletic activities for the 23-24 school year. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board, arranged for your consideration tonight is the total and comprehensive slate of competitive performance commitments for our fine and visual arts groups in the Tucson Unified School District. You'll see some of the prestigious events, whether it's a BOTA, the American Band, or the Arizona Band Orchestra Directors Association, which is equivalent to state championship competition for our band, to the Arizona Music Educators Association, their choral competition, AMEA, or the Arizona Choral Educators, ACE. These are all premier competitions for band choral groups throughout the district. Your approval tonight of these dates protects student travel and protects student absences. As such, your action classifies them as school business, which means that our band students, our choral students, any of our performance arts groups that are performing at these competitions would be able to make up any work or any test at a level of 100% because it would be designated school business. So that is what your action on these items will mean this evening.
Great, thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Governing board members.
I'd like to move the item.
I'll second. Item moved by Ms. Luna Rose, seconded by myself. Any further comments? All those in support say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. All right, 11.6, Pima Early Education Program, or PEEPS, contract renewal for early childhood education. Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, this is a wonderful item. A couple years ago, we were awarded the first iteration of the Pima Early Education Program grant to see if we could stand up 8 additional preschool programs across the district in areas that have traditionally been marked by inaccessibility of preschool and early childhood programming to families because of lack of means and resources. And we have proudly expanded our preschool lineup by 8 classrooms in 8 different locations through the first iteration of this grant. And now the second iteration, which seeks to continue the work that we've done at these 8 additional preschool locations and has included enough funding to actually expand to 10, includes tonight's award of $3.4 million for governing board consideration. So we're very proud to present this item for governing board consideration this evening.
Great, thank you, Dr. Trujillo, and a big shout out to our colleagues on the Pima County Board of Supervisors for making this funding available for early childhood education in our community.
I'd like to move the item.
I'll second.
All right, item is moved by Ms. Luna Rose, seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, I was just going to ask a question, but...
Go ahead, Ms.
okay.
Shaw.
Okay.
Night is young.
Thank you. I was just curious about, I know it's like a free program, and so for the parents who enroll their students in this, is this like a needs-based enrollment? And how is that measured? A needs-based?
It is needs-based, yeah. The criteria is a prioritization of 3 to 5-year-old children from families with incomes at or below 300% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, so, but do they just have to check a box like, yes, I am? Or do we like ask for documentation? I'm just curious.
There's pretty significant documentation involved to the extent that we've actually gotten some concerns that it might be too much that we're asking for. So we're actually probably looking at trying to work with the county to rein that in a little bit. But yeah, there is significant documentation involved.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
All All right, we're going to move to items 11.7 through 11.9. All of them are policy revisions and second readings coming in tonight.
Yeah, President Shaw, members of the governing board, I want to thank the board for its flexibility. I know the last couple of meetings, we've had these second read policies on tap, and we've just been busy, talking budgets and all kinds of other things. But tonight, proud to turn it over to our legal department. And leading us off is our Associate General Counsel, Mr. Aronoff. He'll take 11.7, or all three, or I guess you'll mix and match with Mr. Ross accordingly. Or Mr. Gaw,
with
absolutely.
Dr. Gaw,
Welcome.
yeah.
Dr. Gaw, okay. You're on, Mr. Aronoff.
Thank you. So, good evening, board members. This is sort of a package deal. These three policies in 11.7, 8, and 9 all came from recommendations from the Communicable Disease Task Force. I'm just going to make sure we understand the process around it and sort of where we stand. Dr. Gaw is here to answer any questions about the substantive changes. 11.7 is the first one that's up. It has to do with our proof of immunization requirements. 11.8 is related to our communicable disease processes, how we respond to them. And 11.9 is a policy that we adopted, GBGCC, that we adopted during the height of the COVID pandemic, based on OSHA regulations, if you recall. And we significantly cut that back in light of state legislation that limited things that we could do, as well as the changing needs of the pandemic. And at this point, that policy is up not for revision, but for retirement tonight. All three of these are up for a second read. All three were posted for public comment. None received any public comment during the comment period. So happy to answer any questions about process, and as I said, Dr. Gauze is here ready to answer any questions about the substantive changes.
Sure, we have three policy revisions before us tonight, two revisions and one retirement. Any questions, comments, concerns, feedback from the governing board members? All right, seeing none, can we legally take them all at once? All right, so I'll move items 11.7 through 11.9.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our study info item 12.1, TUSD Customer Supports Center and School Kickoff Initiative, launching learning skill opening of school initiatives. We're getting this a few weeks.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board. Tonight marks just a little over 3 weeks before the start of school. That quick. It was just like yesterday. Students were graduating in the spring, and here we are 3.5 weeks in front of the start of school. And we want to give the governing board and the public just a very, very brief overview of what they can expect from a customer service perspective on the very, very first day of school. We know that there are 2 days in the school year that parents are the most engaged with what is going on with their kids in school. First day of school for everybody across the district, and for, of course, for our secondary families, it's graduation day. And so we know that there's a lot of scrutiny on the first day of school, high expectations. We want to make sure that we're visible, we're present, and we're accessible. Yeah. Here to talk about a new framework on how we're going to do that is our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Blaine Young.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Trujillo, and good evening again, governing board, staff, Councilor Ross. This presentation we're providing you tonight is actually a follow-up to an initiative we had last year when we started schools. Don't have to tell anybody that the school year we were coming off of, although our schools were open that year before this school year we just completed, there was a lot of adjusting coming back to our campuses. And one of the things that we really wanted for our schools this school year we just concluded was to really have an excellent start of school. And one of the things that this was something that came out of with Dr. Trujillo and his leadership team, we really thought about, well, what is it we can do to really help our schools do that? We always try to have extra steps we take to make start of school go well. But what we wanted to do to really help them be able to focus on their families and to focus on the students that are coming on their campuses and not be distracted with some of the more operational administrative things that go on to make school go. We work together collectively as a team to define a framework to take staff from our district office departments and send them out into schools. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that framework. This is Jules O'Haron. She's our project coordinator for our virtual project management office. And she has been instrumental for actually helping us put together the planning to execute on that last year and again this year. So you'll get to hear from her quite a bit. But when we put out the call to our departments, all of our departments responded with staff. And when we wanted to institute this last year, it was new to do it at this scale. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to set a time frame. We know, as Dr. True said, that first day of school is just, it starts off with such a flurry of activity. But we know that it's really the first week that's really busy for schools and everybody starts to settle into a rhythm. So when we thought about this skill framework where we would send staff out, we wanted to establish it for 3 to 5 days. We sent staff on every campus in our district, and the purpose of that staff that was there is really to be there as an aid for those school campuses. Those people were there to anything that was high impact for instruction. HVAC problems, things going on the campus that perhaps were electrical services weren't working or anything like that that's more just making the resources available. That individual is essentially an ambassador on that campus to reach back to supports in our district. So anything that was considered instructional impacting, they were the go-to person that each individual campus knew that they could go to, report those things, and then it's done. It's being handled. They can focus on their families and focus on their students. So when we put that together, we also wanted to have a centralized command center for that staff to reach back to. So a high priority clearinghouse to make sure that those problems were addressed as the priority that they were communicated. So we pulled staff that had skills in these different areas. We focused on these 3 areas because we know there are the areas where there often is concerns for schools at start of school. We had representation from transportation, we had representation from facilities, and we had representation from technology. They worked together as a cross-functional team, and we called that our skill command center. So then we had a pipeline from that command center to all the supports, so we could send out HVAC or whatever the need may be. I wanted to provide that background, particularly for our new board members who weren't here when we went through that activity, so you can understand why we're so excited about bringing this to you again this year. So what I just described, the staff going out to the schools, that's going to happen again this year, and you're going to get a little bit of the detail of that and what that's going to look like. But the command center that we put together last year that was temporary and pulled staff in from these 3 areas, transportation and from technology and facilities, we started an initiative. We got such great feedback from talking to our principals and other stakeholders of this that there was a high interest in having that capability all the time. And so with the superintendent's directive, we set in motion an initiative to put together a centralized customer service center for our district that will operate that way all the time. And so right now, the scope of that is transportation, technology, and facilities. So we're taking the 3 teams that would normally get those contacts from our schools, and in the case of transportation, from our parents, and we're bringing them together as one team, one mission, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So with that kind of background on how we're standing this up, I'm going to turn it over to Jules, and she will give you some of the details of this.
Oh, thank you very much. So as you can see on the slide before you, we are pulling together 3 different teams, and they're actually, they were housed in 3 different locations throughout TUSD, our facilities help desk, our transportation help desk, and our technology help desk. We have relocated those 3 teams together into one central location in the Morrow Building 1010 downstairs, and we've repurposed that space into an office, a customer service center, a space for the leads to help support the customer service center, and a manager that will be overseeing the entire group. So as you can see here, there's a blueprint for the offices that we've just put in, and there is the rendering. It's a wonderful space where they can cross-communicate with each other to help with problem solving. The location for our program coordinators, our leads, and I believe there's one more rendering. Nope, I'm sorry. So with this, it's a big change because our district has become used to 3 separate help desks. So we need to communicate out this message, and that work has already begun. We have spoken with the Instructional Leadership Academy and let them know that this will be launching this summer, next week, as a matter of fact. We've spoken to the superintendent's leadership team, and tonight we're speaking with you to share this really exciting news. So we plan to post this information on our employee network, that we will have a single point of contact, not 3 numbers to remember, but just one number to call, one team to answer your support questions, concerns, and needs. And then we're gonna continue to communicate out to make sure that messaging gets out there across transportation, and our parents who utilize transportation, that they will now have the single point of contact back to the customer service center. And of course, we're going to be providing regular updates out to staff on this wonderful new center that we have. With that, we pulled the 3 teams together. They have 3 different areas of expertise, but we want to make sure that we are cross-training well, with always the focus being excellent customer service. So with that, we have engaged our professional development department, who started us off with some wonderful team building, and then a nationally known company called Fish, who focuses in on customer service. And they came out last month, pulled the team together, and shared their 4 pillars of customer service, which are actually in alignment with the district's customer service, which is FAST. And with FAST, we are flexible, we are accessible, we are service-oriented, and we are transparent. And that's what this team is all about, and that's what this training is all about. And we're going to keep going with this training, keep up with current trends, and make sure that our team is very well cross-trained. With that, we want to make sure that they're well-resourced. So we have a new repository of tools and references that they can share their expertise with one another. Again, we're going to have that single point of contact, and we're launching that phone number next week. You may know that we are upgrading our phone system across the district, and we've had wonderful supports with getting that number launched so that we can communicate that out to staff and families. We are going to be using an application to make sure that we have quick communication, not only with each other, but with departments, and utilizing that same application called Slack with our skill volunteers out at site. And finally, we have installed some customer service screens so that they will have rotating data to see what the status is across our transportation department, across our network, across facilities solutions, and so that we are making sure we're providing excellent, up-to-date information for our customer service team.
So there are standard practices, best practices around the delivery of customer service. And so some of the things that we're harnessing as we launch this is to, while we have 3 wonderful teams that work together and support this district every day in these various services, bringing them together in a single team with a single mission and allow them to collaboratively cross-train each other, share skills, the sum of the parts will be greater than the whole. So one of the things that we want to do on this is to standardize on operating procedures. So a standard set of procedures that are used across the team for how we engage customers, regardless of what the issue is. And then strong documented, repeatable processes. If you think about the experience of having good customer service over and over again, these are the types of resources that bring that to bear and make that happen. And then assigned areas of specialization. They are all experts in their area. And while we might have a basic level of understanding that goes beyond their deepest level of subject matter expertise, we will still have within that team deep expertise in each of these areas, because as a call comes in, they're going to work collaboratively together. When you have a single point of contact customer support center like that, the objective is to try to help that individual the first time and get them the right answer, or to rapidly engage the resources to get them get their issue resolved. So that's the intent of this. And then as far as the subject matter expertise, one of the things that we are going to continue to invest in is really a culture of constant learning there. So it will be built into the operations of the customer support center, where there's going to be weekly learning of different areas. So they're constantly growing their skill sets, but there's also going to be ongoing coaching to help them get better with some of what we traditionally think of as soft skills around customer service, how to de-escalate, things like that when people call for service. Sometimes, it's urgent in nature, and to be able to engage customers in that way. So as Jules has already referred to, all of this team is coming together from 3 existing teams. The one position that's new is this customer service center manager, and this is a position that we've just hired for. This is the individual that's going to own this work program and the focus of it in total, so that they're responsible for long-range planning and things to do with roadmaps and evolving this. This will be a baseline year launch of the service, but we expect it to get better and better and better over time, so that we will see the impact show up on our schools and the recurring service that they get. The one thing that's exists in terms of the structure of the team is to have leads. These leads have expertise in these areas, one in technology, another in transportation, and another in our facilities processes. So they are going to be instrumental to helping that manager take care of the day-to-day operations, and then working with them to plan for the longer range planning to be more strategic in how we continue to evolve those supports. And then the people that do all the work of engaging our staff, and as well as our families who call for the transportation services are our specialists. There's a data analyst you see on there that's not in scope right now. One of the things that we really want is to mine our data, to take our data. You are very familiar with how we want to use data for student outcomes and things of that nature, and we put together professional learning communities, and to be able to use data and take actions that are data informed. We want to do the same thing here at a new level. Not that we weren't doing some of these things, but we believe there's great opportunity here. Looking for themes of problems, looking for, perhaps when it comes to facilities, themes and things that continue to have defects or not working correctly. That's going to help us run our facilities and our services better. So that's the jobs and or the roles within the organization. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jules just to talk a little bit more about skill.
So as we're preparing for this this customer support center, we are also launching Skill to provide that customer support out to sites. So as you may have heard, we have gathered all the departments have volunteers who will be going out to sites. They've been assigned to a specific site during the first 3 days of school. So that is what the Skill initiative is, to provide site support and then reach back for any of those issues that we need to escalate. We did have a communication with our principals where we asked them, how many volunteers would you like? What type of issues are you anticipating, or do you anticipate needing support with? And then we did offer the opportunity to opt out if the school site is humming along very nicely. So we gathered up all of those requests, and then we reached out to departments to request who would like to volunteer out at a site. We had an overwhelming response, and so we have matched those volunteers with those sites. And yes, we have coverage. Thank you very much. The skill resources, we don't just deploy our department volunteers out without resources. We provide them quick answers to commonly asked questions. We provide them training to ensure that they have a consistent communication response. And then we provide them the information on how to reach back to our new customer service center so that we can escalate any of those issues that school sites are having. And that will start on the first day of school. These are our timelines. So as you can see, the service center, we plan to launch next week with our number, but we have gotten the team together, we have hired the manager, and we are looking forward to success there. And with skill, like I've said, we've gotten our volunteers, we've gathered our issues from our principals, and we plan on having training the week of school start on the Monday and Tuesday so that volunteers are ready to go out to sites on that very first day of school.
So just in summary, this is the benefits again of what we expect. We expect a single point of contact. It's just easier. If I don't have to remember this number for this and that number for that, I got one place to go to get help. A support center that's never going to be dead end for information. They're going to help the customer. It's going to result in improved customer service experience over and over again. It also will yield, anytime you combine, you get a greater efficiency. These teams all have different peaks and valleys of when they're supporting the schools. So now you've got the full complement of that team together to be able to serve in greater capacity the district as a whole. And then, of course, the whole teaming, the whole team will grow in their knowledge and expertise to support these important areas of our district. And it should yield improved resolution times. I'm sure that you all know about sometimes our work order backlogs, especially at start of school. You know, there is just such a huge volume of that. This is going to help us in that regard, especially with the prioritization and mining our data to improve, which should over time reduce the number of work orders for things that if we fix them at the root cause, they won't continue to show up. And then improve quality and consistency. This is about a lot more than just consolidating teams. This is about bringing together one team that's going to be focused on excellence and that's going to just increase over time in the quality of service that's delivered and potentially the things that are in scope that they can deliver service for. So with that, we would be happy to take any questions that you have.
Great, thank you for that presentation. I have the first question. So how are we going to make sure everyone's informed about the 225-6262 phone number?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole communication plan. Jules talked about, so we're doing that in layers. It's multifaceted. So we're using our channels of communication with our principals, with our office managers, with our digital-based resources to get that information out. And we're picking our timing. As you know, a lot of our staff aren't here during the summer. So we're launching some of these things, when it's most appropriate for schools to understand the change. We did use the end of the school year that we wrapped to start introducing these concepts. So the school leaders know that this is coming, the office managers know, but so we're going to use multiple mechanisms that way. We also work very closely with our regionals to push out priority information, and so we'll be using those channels for that as well.
Great, thank you. All right, well, I hope this makes a huge difference in terms of making a smoother start to our very busy first couple of days of school coming up in just 3.5 weeks on August 3rd, I believe, right? August 3rd. Okay, great. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you for your time.
Great. Right. Dr. Trujillo, future meeting dates and agenda items. Any highlights for the next couple of meetings you want to
Yes, Governing Board Community. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. July 25th, we will be bringing forward our hopefully a slate for consideration of alternative education committee members to be appointed by the board, as well as a review of the alternative education committee charter. I will also provide an opening of schools update for transportation. We know that that is a priority for us right now, making sure that our routes are getting prepared for communication to parents. And then the board will consider an administrative proposal on the potential enhancements we're planning for our family resource centers under our Family and Community Engagement Initiative, which is outlined in the performance impact analysis that's publicly posted right now, but we will be putting it on a board agenda for discussion on the 25th.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Anything else from the governing board members on future meeting dates and agenda items? All right, seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. 7:55. Great. Have a great evening, everyone. And see you back in 2 weeks.